Welcome to Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. This podcast is about the journey to a more sustainable future in order for us to be able to do our bit to achieve net zero. I'll be discussing a variety of topics with experts in their field in order to educate and increase our knowledge of clean energy, electric vehicles and the electric vehicle infrastructure. So whether you're an individual wanting to make a difference at home, a small business or a corporate, this podcast is just for you. Today I have with me Naomi Nye, and she's the head of sales at Drax, which is really, really interesting. And the stuff that she's going to be talking about with regards to the EV charging side and what Drax do in the bigger picture is just fantastic. So thank you, Naomi, for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here.
So we met a few months ago now. It feels like yesterday. July feels like yesterday. I felt like I should have left my Christmas tree up at the end of December because we're in November now and it's so quick, and how did that happen? But we met in July on the Greenfleet EV Rally. You had a team. I was on Women Drive Electric's team, and you looked like you were having a whale of a time. We were all quite knackered, weren't we? But you were having a whale of a time, weren't you?
Yeah, do you know what? It was such a good week. I think for me, it's the first time I've done the rally. For me, having that whole experience was just incredible. And one of the reasons that I wanted to do it was because I drive a Tesla as my kind of EV car of choice. So I think I'm always quite spoiled with the Tesla network and being able to get out there and actually experience, that public network from a much wider viewpoint. What's out there? What's it costing? How is it working? Really kind of understanding that from that customer consumer perspective was really important for me. So that was one of the reasons that I really wanted to be involved. And then it just ended up, just having such a blast with so many fab people, and everyone, was just so passionate and, all kind of pulling to achieve the same things. And yeah, it was great. It was a really, really good week. But yes, it was quite exhausting as well.
It was very exhausting, but it was so exhilarating. And some of the sites we saw were fantastic, including the Drax hub or I said to you before we started recording, I didn't even know, I'm a northerner, I didn't even know Drax was a village. It's a village in Selby, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, so the power station.
Yeah, I didn't have a clue.
Yeah, power station's up there in Selby. So we are now, I think this year we've just had our 50th anniversary. So we've been around for quite a while, and that power station back in the day was coal-fired power station, which I think for us, early 90s, the writing was definitely on the wall for that. So there's been this whole project, which I think was one of the largest, or it was the largest, decarbonisation project in Europe, actually transferring that over from coal to biomass. So huge, huge project there. But that's not our only asset or property that, we generate the power from. We also have hydropower up at Crooken. So for us, renewable energy, clean energy, it's a key part of what we do. And that is really the core of our business, is that energy side, renewable energy. So in the UK, we are part of the National Critical Infrastructure for the UK. We're the largest provider of dispatchable renewable power through that biomass at Selby and the hydropower up at Crooken. And we currently provide around 12% of the UK's renewable energy. So, really kind of being experts in that space, understanding how that works. And then out of that, I think there's a whole other group of services that Drax have kind of pulled together to really help support customers on their decarbonisation piece, and where they are and how we can get them through scope 1, 2, 3 emissions, and how we can really support them moving forward. So yeah, Drax Electric Vehicles, which is really where I sit. So I'm really on the EV side of the business. We sit within kind of that commercial retail space, if you like, under a section of the business called Energy Solutions. And through that side of the business, we are supporting customers with renewable power, so we can supply renewable energy. We support on electrification services, so we do a full end-to-end turnkey solution for EV charging points. But then we can also take it that one step further, where we're looking at those EV chargers as an asset, and how then can we use flexibility services, demand-side response, on top of load management, smart charging, those kind of things that we can activate. How can we then look at it from a site level So we're looking at things, not just your EV charging points, it may be your heat pumps, it might be refrigeration, it might be manufacturing. There's all sorts of things that you can bring into play to support those flexibility side of the business and really kind of support the way we use energy and how we can use it most effectively and get the most value out of it. So there's a whole ranch of things that kind of sit behind it.
And your background was previously in renewables anyway, wasn't it? So that's kind of why you, or kind of the EV side of things, but that's why you came into work at Drax, wasn't it?
At Drax, yeah. So I've been in the EV space. So I joined a company called Rolec, who are a charge point manufacturer in the UK. I joined them in 2010. Prior to that, I was actually in finance. I was independent financial advisor, so completely different.
Yeah.
Different. So yeah, I was in finance for a number of years, and I think I got to that point where, you know, I was on a bit of a hamster wheel. Everything was quite busy, you know, young children, self-employed, working lots of hours, and I thought I just needed a bit of a change of direction, change of career. So yeah, I decided that I'll have a little bit of a break while I thought about what I wanted to do. What was my next kind of challenge going to be? But while I was thinking about that, I still wanted to work. I haven't not had a job since I was 14 years old, so I've always worked. And yeah, I got a little 9-to-5 job at Rolec, working actually in the leisure side of the business, so caravan parks, marinas, putting the electrical infrastructure there for the hookups for caravan parks and marinas. And yeah, the EV kind of evolved out of that. So the first EV, it was the wall pod that Rolec kind of made, was for the domestic market, and it was a lodge caravan hookup box that was adapted as an EV charger. And they're still all over the place today. My neighbour down the road still got one, you know, in the front of his house. And they're still a really, really popular unit. So, you know, it was, you know, from back then, where it was just a socket on the wall, just a dumb charger effectively, in that domestic space, then it just kind of grew from there, and I moved into EV kind of full time really from around 2014, where I was building up the kind of corporate side of the EV business. And that was really then, you know, I did an amazing project with UPS in Camden and DPD, putting charge points in at DPD and all these other, you know, big companies, and really kind of expanding it out. So yeah, I feel like I've been in the EV space a little while, but what really drew me to Drax was that end-to-end solution and that more holistic approach, I think, which is really key.
That's brilliant. And how long have you been at Drax now?
It's 18 months now. Yeah. 18 months. And for me, you know, when I joined Drax, I was quite surprised the amount of amazing stuff that we do. And I'm still trying to get my head around some of the amazing stuff.
I'm not surprised.
I think, you know, from some of the innovation that we're looking at around, you know, with that biomass and carbon capture storage and how it's moving into that space. And we have so many experts in the business that really specialize in these individual areas. And what's great is, you know, when we're talking to these bigger kind of corporate customers, you know, and they have a lot of challenges, really understanding how they're going to decarbonize, where do they start, you know, how we can support them on that. You're able to bring in a number of different people from across the different areas and say, right, you know, well, you asked about this, and I brought in Sanso to talk to you about this, and you've asked about, you know, this side of it, and this is where we can support. So it's a very nurturing space, I think, to kind of be and work. And it's really exciting as well. It's really exciting to kind of know, you know, all the stuff that's happening in the background and everything that needs to happen in order to effectively get us to where we need to be, right?
Absolutely. So Drax is a UK, obviously you've got Drax Village, so it's a UK company. How big is it? I don't even know how big Drax is.
Yeah, we're actually a global company. So we operate a number of different sites. So we've got the sites in the UK. We also, as part of that biomass, we generate the pellets as well. So on the pellet side of the business, we also work with forestries all over the world, really, at various different locations. So we've got assets in the UK, we've got them in Canada, in America, I think there might also be an office in Japan, off the top of my head. So yeah, don't quote me on that, now that I've just said that in front of probably thousands of people. But yeah, we are a global company, and there's a number of different things that we're bringing together. So those pellets that we make for the power station, we also supply to other companies as well. So we are looking to be, you know, a global leader in that side of the business too.
Yeah.
And that's leading a lot of innovation, and it's really making sure, you know, that we're working to really kind of strict forestry commissions and regulations, and for me it feels that Drax, all those regulations and everything that we do around, you know, health and safety, obviously only in a power station, all these things that come into play, you filter that down through every single part of the business. And that's another thing I really like about it, because whilst maybe a little bit too belt and braces in places, but you know, that belt and braces side of it is really, really important, and it gives the customer that confidence in you as well, you know, when you're doing things, you know, to a gold standard. I think that's kind of where we stand, and that's probably why we have the customers that we have over the length of time that we have them.
No, I think it's fantastic. In fact, do you know what? I was looking at a website called I Am Kate the other day, which is the National Grid Live. I'm going to look at it now while we're talking. So we are on a Monday night in November, and actually biomass is 6.3% of kind of the overall power that's going through the energy that's going through the grid.
Yeah.
So you can actually see it.
Yeah.
What's that? And that's coming from you guys, isn't it? My God.
Yeah, it's
That's amazing. And the stuff that, so right, let's start taking it through the layers then. So you are the electric vehicles side of the company.
Yeah.
What does that do, and what are you, so you've got a turnkey solution.
Yeah.
What does that kind of involve, and who for?
Yeah, so we're called electric vehicles, but we're not actually about the cars, we're about the infrastructure. So it's all about supporting that transition to electrification. So in terms of the way that we do that, we start right at the beginning, where we're looking at kind of fleet assessments, really understanding business needs, requirements, how do these vehicles move around, where are their dwell points, you know, what's the site look like at that point, what's needed to go in the ground. In terms of hardware, we're actually agnostic. So we do AC and DC. As a group, we've installed over 14,000 electric vehicle charge points now. And that's anything from domestic for those commercial vehicles that are taken home, all the way through to the big 350 kilowatt DC rapid chargers.
Wow.
So we do the kind of full range. But for us, the key is really about understanding what the customer needs, what they require, and how they need to do it. But then also working with them on that EV strategy that's not only going to suit them now, but it's going to suit them longer term. So keeping future-proof, keeping flexible. Strategy side is key. I remember being at the fleet show a few weeks ago. I was on a panel session with Sarah Sleeman, and she was talking about strategy, and she was saying, but it's so important that strategy needs to be flexible. It can't be a fixed and rigid. And I'm just like, oh, it's just, you know, it completely makes sense. So how do you support customers through that whole journey? So it is about the hardware, it's about the software, and we are a charge point operator. So we look after and we manage those charge points on their behalf. We'll see an issue before they do. And then we also offer the service maintenance piece with really strict kind of SLAs and KPIs. So for us, it's holding their hand through that whole process, really understanding what are they trying to do, how are they trying to do it, and how do we support those needs now, but also in the future, and, you know, have that partnership ongoing. So that's really kind of where we sit. And in terms of who that works for, I mean, really, you can do that for anyone. So we're not fussed about, you know, only working with particular customers, but essentially, I guess, where we sit as a big kind of FTSE 250 company, being able to offer the energy side and the flexibility services as well, it's really working with probably multi-site locations. And those customers that may have, you know, a few more complexities, I guess, to their challenges, you know, really large fleets, maybe a lot of commercial vehicles that, you know, they're trying to transition without much disruption, cost critical vehicles, you know, these kind of things. And how do we bring all of that together for them? And that's really, you know, where we come in and sit down and kind of work through it all.
Wow. And I was going to say, just like you said about future proofing and that, and as Sarah was talking about, you were saying, you know, the flexible strategy. to me, it's also, and of course I'm going to say this, it's about learning to continuously improve.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
that's part of that's got to be part of the overall strategy as you're moving forward. But the innovation, you've got the innovation strategy and improvement, and it's a never ending wheel, is it? No.
And not only that, I think, we've said before, you've got that to kind of look at. You've then got the technology to bring into that and how that technology is moving so fast. You even think about, your mobile phone. You buy a mobile phone, within a month, it's already out of date, right? So how do you keep up with that technology and that innovation that's coming through? How do you then align that with the vehicles? Because obviously the charge points we put in are universal. Going back to what I was talking about, Tesla kind of worked out this really smooth process where they made a vehicle and they made a charge point and they made the app and they made the payment process and they put it all together really seamlessly because they did it all in one package. Where we're trying to come in, we're trying to put in universal charge points in that work across the board with vehicles that different size batteries that charge in different ways, that, businesses that have different requirements, different business needs, payment options, energy, thinking about that as a finite resource. How do you utilize that? Accessibility, the actual physical spaces of, losing car parking spaces or combining that with, parking, health and safety, reverse parking plans, for example. You might not be able to have reverse parking if you've got charging on the front of these vehicles. Yeah. All these different things that come into play, and you're constantly kind of topping that pot up. So for me, when we talked at the beginning around, why did I move into space and stay into this space? It was that challenge that every day, you're supporting, I love what I'm doing because you've got that bigger picture, right? And we're doing good for the world and et cetera, et cetera. But actually, when you break it down into every single day, it's always, you're learning something new all the time. There's always, that process, and I love working with people and that people person piece as well. So yeah, bringing it all together is definitely challenging. And even now, I still think we're a really long way away from kind of getting there. We're getting better every day and we're improving, but we still have a lot of work to do.
I've just literally, when you just said challenges, I'd literally just written down challenges on the piece of paper in front of me. I was going to ask
Yeah.
you, what have you seen, because you've been around this industry for quite some time now, what have been originally the biggest challenges that are now kind of oh, that was so easy compared to what we've got here? What's it kind of looking like for you, really? Where are the biggest challenges for you?
So I think for me, a lot of this still sits around education. I think education has always been the biggest challenge from day one. And I think, what we're seeing over the last, we have been seeing over the last quite a long time, really, is lots of misconceptions around electric vehicles. And, I was at Sustainability Live last week, and I've actually gone back to starting my presentations, why electric vehicles? Go right back to the beginning, because, people, I think, are so caught up with, we've got to now buy electric vehicles and it's a technology and I don't really understand technology and I don't really know how to charge it. And we're almost getting, why are we doing this in the first place and where is it going and what does that look like? And really understanding, the market side of it, where is regulation, legislation taking us with like ZEV mandate and these kind of things? How does that come into play? How does that affect you as a business? Because you've almost got a bit of a carrot and you've got a bit of a stick and you've got this whole piece in the middle where you've got lots of different stakeholders involved that don't really know where to start. And that's probably the biggest thing, Liz. I think when we're talking to businesses in particular, it's like, where do we start? Where does it sit? Does it sit with energy? Does it sit with procurement? Does it sit with the fleet manager who's looking at the vehicles? Are they supposed to put in the infrastructure as well? And so it falls through a lot of gaps. And then I think, when you get to the point where you say, right, now I'm going to put in some charging. I've got some vehicles, I need some charging. Now it's like, there's so much choice out there. I don't know what's the difference. And it's always about the right kit in the right location, doing the right job, that behaviour shift between moving away from an ICE vehicle into an electric vehicle and actually just shifting away from that. How do I then bring my drivers on board? And that's really important. Driver training, driver days, getting them activated and really understanding, what the business is trying to achieve and why. So there's a whole load of things that we have to put together. But when you think about all the different parts, think about the hardware and you think about the software and you think about the payment systems, it all comes down to education. It all comes down to having an understanding of what you're trying to do, how you're trying to do it, and then also having the expertise in there to make sure it's working. If it's working, it should be easy, right? It should be really straightforward. You want that smooth EV driver experience where they're just going to go and plug in and it's going to work. First and foremost, that's the main thing. It's going to work. And then when it does, it's giving you that straightforward, as we're moving more away from the early adopter, and we are just starting to move into mass adoption. I know people talk about we're in that phase. I think we're in the very, very early stages of mass adoption. But, people want convenience, don't they? They want convenience and ease, and they don't want to be standing fiddling with charging stations. And, I've had some experiences where I had to come away from the Tesla network and I had to use some other chargers, and I couldn't get my card to work, and then it just took ages to start, and I was literally had 12 miles, and I thought, no, I really need to get this starting. And it's painful, isn't it? And it's stressful because when you add your time delay into that and you think, well, I didn't plan on stopping here now. I've ended up stopping here because I got waylaid because of whatever. So it's got to be smooth. It's got to be seamless, and we've got to pull together. And I think that's where you have this collaboration piece, which I just think is so exciting. The amount of people in the EV Rally, perfect example of that. How many people were there? Just coming together and working together. It was amazing.
It was amazing. And do you know what? I really, really liked at some of the checkpoints that we stopped at. Especially was one in Exeter where there was a lady who came over to talk to, I can't remember, I ended up talking to her, and she was already driving an EV, but she wanted to know what we were all doing, and there were other stops, checkpoints where they were going, so what are you doing?
Yeah.
Because and yes, that woman, yes, she was driving an EV, but there were other people that weren't. And because of the fact that I still think some people think that they should have had a decision, they should have had a referendum or something like that about whether we should move to an EV or not. I mean, look at the last one. So that's anything to go by. Oh, went a bit Pete wrong, didn't it?
It did.
So, people think that some people think they're being forced into it. Mm-hmm. Some people, kind of, you're never going to make everybody happy. But I think, like you say, the education side of things, because there's been so much negativity about EVs and the network, full stop, I think it's about cutting through all that crap, and kind of just, right, okay, we know you're a petrol head, that kind of conversation. I know you're a petrol head, that's the kind of thing that you like. And I've seen this on the Auto Trader do something on their, I think they do it on Facebook or on their website or something like that, where they'll actually invite somebody who's gone, oh, EVs are crap, on, and they'll take them out. There'll be a trained EV racing driver, and he'll take them on a lap.
Yeah.
And then you just see their face going, oh my God, this is amazing. And actually, it's little bits, we've got to keep increasing the volume of that, of those kind of education pieces to get that word out there, haven't we? And people have got to hear the truth from, and even if it is somebody being taken around a track and going like that, it's that kind of thing that will appeal to the petrol head. It'll appeal to this person. It'll appeal to that person. It's about, just like I say, increasing that level of volume in my mind.
Absolutely. And it's making sure, no, I completely agree. And I think it is making sure that right information cuts through to the right people. Because I think it's very easy when you're in the industry and we see the amount of innovation happening, and there is some incredible stuff happening. And, I talk to people and they're like, oh, this is happening and this is going to be the next big thing. And I go, yeah, 5 years years from now. And they're like, well, you've said 5 years from now for the last 10 years. And I go, yes, because commercially, and for the, Joe Brown out there that's still deciding whether to move into EV or not, and still having those conversations, we're still a long way from those kind of commercial choices happening and making sense and being at a point where they are commercially viable. And that's the difference. It's like you can do all this stuff, which is fantastic, and all that innovation is absolutely key to kind of keep it moving forward. But it's about introducing it into the market in the right way, that it's kind of moving forward and it is viable for people. And I think that's the bit that sometimes gets a little bit forgotten when we're looking at all the technology and we're so excited about everything coming through, that actually is only going to work if you've got a customer on the end of it that is embracing it and putting it in the ground and working with it on a day-to-day basis. So there is still an awful lot of work to do, but every faith we're going to get there, every faith.
And I was going to say, especially for the charging network, like you said, with regards to, the workplace charging or whoever, big fleet, charging for big fleets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The companies who take it on don't know what their drivers think, do they? No. So it is about that kind of getting that positive, it's getting the truth to them rather than what they may have read in the daily whatever.
Yeah, we do a lot of work around EV drivers, driver days, spending time with the drivers, getting involved in the EV policies that are going out as well. It's taking it that one step further, because it is important that people understand, what the business is trying to do and how that's going to work for them personally. So when there's kit going in the ground, or suddenly they've been given a commercial vehicle, but they're going to have to take it home, and they're like, well, what, and take it off my own electricity bill, and now I'm going to have a charge point put at home, and all of these other things. There's lots of things that you have to then start bringing into play. Or even if they're not taking it home and charging it at home and they're using the public network, they're like, well, I've got to take half hour out of my day. I'm not going to take my lunch time to do that. So, how do we get that driver engagement to initiate that behavior change, but also have enthusiasm and, encourage that in a really, really positive way? So that's all part of those early conversations and that education piece and everything that we have to do. And I think, as a company where we kind of sit building those early relationships and having that kind of consultancy piece, really, where you're understanding what those challenges could potentially be, and having that expertise as well of, all the previous work that we've done with previous companies and, their complexities and their difficulties, and bringing all that together, we're really kind of in a unique position to kind of be at the forefront of that. So it works really well.
And it's really good that you're involved, like you just said, that next step, which is the policy development, because actually, like you confirmed that you can't just stop there, can you? If you just stop there, you're kind of going, right, see you later, thanks for that, bye-bye, waving them down the road, and you're going, and that poor person or that poor organisation, it's about the hand-holding.
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of companies out there that do just put kit in the ground and walk away. And then you just kind of think, for companies, because if they haven't taken that engagement step, they haven't had that consultation piece, if you like, they haven't got that data, they haven't done the planning, which for me is absolutely key to any part of this. That planning and kind of thinking about, what they need, they can end up making some really, really expensive mistakes. So I think even on LinkedIn, we try and put a lot of educational material out there. So, we try and take people through, these are things to think about, these are things to bear in mind. If you want some advice, just call us for some advice. That's fine. We're happy. We can do that. Because it can be quite an expensive mistake if you get it wrong.
Because the chargers themselves, I don't know the price, to be honest, of the AC chargers as such, but I do know the price of some of the DC chargers, and they're not cheap, are they? We're talking thousands, include, as well as you've got all the installation costs and, the payment and all the back office systems and all of that big ball of soup. That's a wrong word, isn't it? You don't get a bowl of soup. Do you know what I mean?
Big stew, I think. Yeah.
I was thinking of spaghetti and it came out as soup.
Spaghetti's just good. That's fine.
Bloody night. I'm getting I'm tired now. It's a big. It's kind of a big task to put all this stuff together, isn't it? Really, and to get one bit wrong, it could just unravel the whole thing, can't
It is,
it?
yeah, and I think that's why I think you have to engage with all of those different stakeholders, because I think they're right in that it doesn't just sit with one area. It shouldn't just be with procurement looking at that bottom line and saying how much is this going to cost and which budget is it going to come out of. It needs to be, part of that energy piece, so that we're understanding how we're using the energy. The fleet manager has to be involved, so he's got an understanding of what the vehicles have to do when they're on site in order to support that transition. Sustainability, it just goes on. Facilities management, it goes on and on with all these different people. So you have to engage all of those stakeholders and bring all of those on board at the same time, which is why often when we're looking at trying to put EV into the ground, even if we're only looking at a few charge points, it can end up being, a longer term project, because not only have you got all that, site capacity, hardware, cabling, groundwork, civils, all that great stuff, you've also got all of that initial work where you're bringing everyone on board and making sure that everybody's completely in line with what's happening when disruption to the business, cost critical vehicles, all of that is happening at the same time. And then when you add on all the other layers, how do people pay for it? Financing, bringing the financing side in, bringing the payment solutions and those different options in, adding in load management and smart charging, and then you throw in some regs. Then you're like, oh, okay. So your next lot has now encountered a new lot of regulations. So this is what we're doing this time. So yeah, it's just making sure, I think, if you've got that education piece and you're upfront and you're open and you're honest and, you're there for your customers, then you won't go wrong.
To me, what you're saying, it's about joined up thinking, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like you say, it's joined up thinking, having ducks in a row, however many, anecdotes I want, it's just making sure that you've thought of everything, which at the beginning, and I was talking about this on another podcast, at the beginning, you don't know what you don't know.
No.
You are a big company, but this was kind of like a venture into, you don't know what you don't know, because energy, but it's kind of, so going into that, and you're learning as you're going through, but then once you kind of pick up all the pieces, then it.
Yeah.
And you kind of go, I don't know whether the end-to-end, the turnkey solution is kind of, I'm assuming it's adapted.
Yeah, absolutely.
Over time.
Yes, it's completely, and it's bespoke to individual customers as well. So we can do kind of different sides. It's about understanding what works for you and what works for the needs. And again, I think that was another draw for me with Drax, because you're not trying to fit a solution to a customer, and in the back of your mind you're like, this isn't quite right, or they're going to struggle with this in 6 months time or in a year's time or whatever. This is about going, right, well, we're going to build a solution out. And at Drax we have quite a large EV team, but uniquely we have a whole team of people that purely look at products and propositions, solutions and regulation. So they are just a full, load of people that just spend all day thinking about solutions, products, what's coming in, how does that fit with regulations, what's the new technology coming in, how can we build that into something, or reacting to customers. We now are at a point where we work so closely with customers, they almost have a bit of a wish list. They're like, what I would like is, and you're like, well, that doesn't exist, but let me go away and see what I can do. And that's all part of it, because, we can look at it and go, well, it doesn't exist, but it should do. And maybe we can think about this, and maybe we can make it even better by doing A, B, and C as well. So, and that's, I think, as well, where you have that collaboration piece, because you're never going to have one single customer or one single business that's going to be able to cover everything. And uniquely, I think in this space, we are very different probably from other industries in that even when we're looking at, if I just think about, a sales and a marketing perspective, which is kind of where I am, even putting that out to customers and saying who we're targeting, and you kind of target to people. Well, EV is anywhere you can park a car, right? So you're like, oh, okay, that's a bit of a tricky marketing campaign. And that's the thing. I think you're bringing in so many different things and so many different areas of industry, businesses, innovation, technology, finance, government, that you have to bring it all together and you have to work well, and the people in this industry working for those different companies across the board, you know, and you see it at the shows and the events that we go to, you saw it on the rally, you saw it, we come together and everyone is just pulling together in that same way. Everyone's just like, you know, even we did the fleet show with the EV cafe as part of that village. And what happens is in that space, I can have a customer come over and talk to me and I'll be like, I can't help with that, you know, particular area, but I'm going to take you over here and I'm going to hand you over to, because this person can. So we all kind of know what each other do and how we do it. And it's just such a lovely place to be. It's a really nice place to, you know, think that that's my job and that's what I do. And yeah, it's fab.
I was going to talk to you about your kind of the collaboration side with the EV Cafe, because I know you've been involved in most of the kind of the EV Cafe village, you know, kind of villages, haven't you? Which is quite, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's a lot, a fair amount of different organisations, like you say, but you can cross refer if people coming, you know these answers, but actually for this bit you need to go there.
Yeah.
And at least if you can point them in the right direction, that's always good.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think that's what it's about, right? It's about everybody working together. It's very rare that I've come across in this industry any kind of competitiveness, bizarrely. You know, there'll be customers that might do a similar thing or a slightly similar proposition or a slightly similar solution in one area, but you're still working together to kind of make things happen. And it's just, happy, friendly, lovely space. So yeah, that's exactly how it works, Liz. We literally, you want some telematics? Come on, let me take you over here and have a chat with Webfleet. They'll help, you know, or whatever. And it does, it works really well.
And actually, it's a bit like going back to the kind of the networking days where you would go. You know, I used to do this. We'd go to kind of like I hated this, but the 7 o'clock breakfast meetings. I used to do. I think they're still on, you know.
Yeah, they do.
But actually, you got to know the companies that were in those breakfast meetings. And then you knew that you could refer on to people because you'd got to know them. In fact, bizarrely enough, from all those years ago, it's definitely over 10, 15 years ago, my web developer I know from those meetings.
Yeah.
And I still work with him, you know, so it's just things like that, isn't it? But it's kind of going back to that, but it's like the modern, I sound like an old bag now, but it's just an up to date version of that, isn't it? But you've got it all there for customers to kind of come and check out. And I think that's really innovative of the EV Cafe, because obviously, you know, that's what they do. They're really good at doing that kind of stuff. But bringing you in is fantastic.
And it works so well for us as a business as well, right? Because out of that, you're developing partnerships. So for customers that want, you know, that relationship where we're looking after everything for them on that end-to-end solution, we can have partners in place that can add on those bells and whistles, but they don't have to have a number of different contracts with different companies or different groups. They can keep it so that we are the contact and they have the contract with us, and we look after everything else in the background to kind of make it work and bring it together. So we have various partnerships in place because, you know, you have to add those bells and whistles to be able to come up with those bespoke solutions to really make it work for people, and work, you know, in a very collaborative way. And I think I've said collaborative about 25 times on this call, so I am so sorry.
No, please don't apologise, because that's what it's all about. You know, that is what it's all about. I want to ask you about this is going to be multiple things, but what does a day in the life of Naomi look like?
Oh, blimey. Yeah, I guess it depends on what day of the week it is.
If it's an EV Rally day, then it's probably getting up at like 6 in the morning, being there for 6:30, 7 o'clock.
Yeah, singing some
driving 360 miles, singing to Anton Deck with hats on.
You know the things
you can ask her about that. Anybody later, you can talk to her about that another time. There is
the things you do to entertain yourself while you're in a car for 12 hours. Yeah, it was definitely interesting. I think a day in the life, I think I'm very, I think with my role, so my role touches quite a lot of things really, because it can be very forward facing, you know, in terms of being with customers and being on the road and out meeting them, Teams meetings, whatever. I think I also kind of sit around that strategy side a little bit. So, what's that strategy look like? How are we getting these new product solutions out there? Dealing with those different areas, so products and solutions, kind of make sure that we're feeding that back so that we're getting the right products in place. So, we work very closely as a kind of leadership team, if you like, across the different areas in EV, so that we all come together and make sure that everybody is very cohesive and everything is working very well, and we have that real joined up approach. And then I think as well, spending a lot of time with the team and just making sure that we're all where we need to be and doing what we need to do. So work is work. It is crazy sometimes. It is very busy sometimes. I get involved in a lot of the events and the marketing and various presentations and panels and things like that as well, which are slightly outside my comfort zone, if I'm honest, but we do them. And then weekends are very different because I'm with the boys or my grandson. I've got a little 3-year-old grandson who's just incredible. And
how's that possible? You don't
I'm definitely old enough. And spending time with him. So yeah, it's a full week.
Okay. So I tell you what, I'm gonna end on this question.
Okay.
Right. So if you could give one piece of advice to an organisation who was starting to transition their fleet to EV, what would that one piece of advice be, other than come to Drax?
Yeah, I actually had that in a panel session. I was like, just call me, I'll do it. For me, it's understanding your data and planning. That's always the first step. So understand, what am I trying to do? Where's my low-hanging fruit? What can I do quickly? Don't try and think you have to do everything at once, because you don't. Think about it as a long-term, you're going to be dipping in and out of this EV strategy over a number of years, and you're going to be thinking about, what I need now, and you might not know what you need now, so you're not going to know what you need in a year's time or 5 years' time. So understand, what is your data? What do my vehicles do? How do they move? Which ones can I electrify? What are the miles? What are the payloads? What are the dwell times? How then am I going to start planning and moving forward? And get the experts in early. Get the experts in at that beginning stage that can support you, that can do a design for you, that can really kind of understand where you need to be and where you're going and how you're going to get there, and build it out piece by piece. So planning, data, think about that. Think about then the design that kind of sits behind that to achieve what you need to achieve. And then the layer of that is the financial layer, that then you kind of think about, how is that going to come out, whether that's going to be through financing, leasing, capex payments, however it's going to work. And from there, you can build out your strategy and how that's going to sit, and keep your strategy adaptable. So think about putting kit in the ground that's going to be future-proof, flexible. Don't tie yourself into 10, 15-year terms, because that you're going to get yourself in some trouble. Think about, kit that, can I upgrade this kit? Am I putting in things that, simple stuff for AC, is it on an open platform? So if something happens to the provider or the back office, can I still keep that hardware and put another provider in place? So there's all sorts of things there to think about, but planning, expertise right at the beginning will support you all the way through.
Oh, that's brilliant. Actually, and the final question, what do you want to achieve in the next few years? Where do you want to... Well,
work hard.
You can answer whichever way you want. I don't mind.
Yeah, I think for me, I think we all know, right, electric vehicles are here to stay. And I think, building on that, seeing where that technology is going, I think is really interesting. But equally, I think for me, it's making sure that we're protecting the resources that we have. And I think that is absolutely key. So looking at it from that, a bit more of a holistic viewpoint, understanding not only what you're trying to achieve, but what resource you have to do it. And yeah, I think over the next 5 years, I mean, I completely seeing me doing exactly what I'm doing today, hopefully just with lots more people, with having lots more charge points out there and continuing to keep that running and keep it growing.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Oh.
Honestly, it's been lovely to talk to you. It really, really has. It's just, yeah, I'm going to make sure that all of your links and everything like that are all in the show notes so that people can contact you. Naomi she's on LinkedIn. She's, you're on a variety of different Are you on a variety of different platforms? I think you are, aren't
Yeah, I
you?
think Drax Electric Vehicles, Drax Energy Services, Drax Group, you can come through, you can find out all the exciting stuff, see what we're doing, website that's out there that I can share with you, Liz, and you can pop on, go on to see the different aspects of the business, what we're doing, how we're doing it, and if I can support anyone, I'm always contactable. Drop me a line, give me a call, and I'm more than happy just to have a chat. And if I can support in any way, just let me know.
Fantastic. So, as I usually do at the end of my podcast now, I basically say to you all, thank you very much for listening and watching. If you want to actually spread the word, it would be very, very much appreciated, so that people can hear what Drax have got, what Drax do and what Naomi does and what her team does. So share it, like it, comment on it. Anything like that is always very, very much appreciated, because the more we do that, the more we start kind of spreading it. Absolutely. And more people will get to know what the truth is, rather than hearing that old shizzle that's in the media.
Thank you so much for having me, Liz. It's been lovely to speak to you this afternoon. It really has. So thank you so much for that.
And you, and to everybody else, thank you ever so much, and I shall see you next time. Thank you for watching Electric Evolution. I really love bringing you these weekly conversations about sustainability, renewables, and building a cleaner future together. If you're passionate about positive change, please like, subscribe, and share with others who also care about these topics. You can also download our white paper, Plugging into the Future, at fullcircleci.co.uk and join the discussion on improving sustainable transport, or email me at liz@fullcircleci.co.uk. Thanks for watching. Bye.